Welcome back to another episode of People of Product. My name is George Brooks, and on today's episode, I got the pleasure to talk with Karthik Suresh. Karthik is the co-founder of Ignition, and Ignition is a platform that aims to unlock revenue opportunity. We all want that by aligning product, marketing, and sales teams around new market initiative launches. So they have an AI-powered platform because AI is taking over the world. But what I loved about his solution and his position is he's really trying to help educate people on a way of getting product market fit, of product market launch. So that's connecting the product marketing group to the product group to better understand how do we tell the story of why this should exist in the world, who are our competitors, who is our persona, what are our metrics that we're going for. They've really thought about it from end to end. And he takes his experiences being at Facebook and being at other startups and allows himself to apply that to this product that he's been building for the last couple of years. They got some new features rolling out, and he's very excited about the power of AI. And I think they've done AI really, really, really well. So we nerded out on a lot of these topics, both from how you build a team, how you get that product out to market, and then where's AI taking us? So I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Let's jump right in. All right, Karthik, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm super excited to have you. I want to throw it straight to you. Why don't you give the audience a little bit of background about yourself and what you're working on right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Excited. My name is Karthik, and just to go a little bit into my background. So I have a tech background. I started my career in a very different field. I was in high frequency and algorithmic trading space in basically New York, and spent about 7 years. But then I realized, it was not very fulfilling for me. Making money with no purpose wasn't the best thing on earth. So I was like, okay, I need to change my career, and then I moved to tech. My first gig at tech was actually the first thing I did was I started a company called Altrest with one of my really good friends from undergrad, but that failed, or at least in the way I had envisioned. And then I joined this company called Craft, which is an enterprise intelligence company here. It's a Series B company now, but I joined them as a second employee, and that's where I kind of learned the art of the product market fit, building basically build product and operations for them. So that was a great experience. I was there for 4 years. So basically the 0 to 1 journey. Then I joined Facebook as a PM. So I wanted to see what it is like to build products at a late stage company, or basically one of the largest tech companies out there. So that was a amazing time as well. I was on the Facebook app, and then also the early growth PMs on Facebook Reality Labs, which is Meta right now. I keep forgetting they
Right.
changed the name. And after that, while I was launching Oculus related, like a feature on in Facebook Reality Labs, the go-to-market plan there, or basically the launch plan, was like a spreadsheet with 100 tabs, and nobody knew there was a tab to keep track of other tabs, and nobody knew where to find the messaging or the campaigns, who's responsible for what. And I was like, there has to be a better way to solve this. And then I met Derek, my co-founder, through OnDeck. He used to run product marketing for Rippling, and then we came up with Ignition. So that's what I've been working on so far.
What an incredible journey. So from trading to startup to smaller organizations, then jumping in and saying, I want to see what it looks like at the big tech firm, and now all the way back to the startup world. But you've been at this for a couple of years now. So tell me more about Ignition. I know you're trying to solve that same problem of how do we connect, how do we help better manage the connection between product and marketing, product marketing fit, and go to market. Tell me more about what you're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah. So Ignition in its early stages, basically what we are trying to solve. There's a few things we're trying to solve. Like number one is, like, how do you the one number one thing is, like, how do you create a really good product launch process and a go to market plan, basically, for either your new product or an existing feature. To take a step back, when you think about what's a good go to market plan is, so you first need to think about, okay, like who is my audience, right? Who's your target persona, and who's my ICP? So you need to define that and make sure you have some user research done beforehand. Then once you know who your persona is, then you also set some OKRs for the launch. Like, what is the objectives for this launch? What do I want to achieve? Is it signups? Is it revenue? Whatever the OKRs are. And then you need to think about like the messaging. Like, how am I going to message the value prop of my product so that it clearly appeals to my target audience. Then once I have the messaging in place, then I need to build the positioning. Positioning is super critical. Like, how do I position my product in this market? So for that, you need to do some competitor research, figure out like, what are the differentiators of your product compared to other competitors? Where do you bring value? So who you're selling, what are your differentiators, and how you differentiate yourself from your competitors, and so how do you position yourself in the market? And that's an important exercise in the go-to-market planning. And once you're done with positioning, then you think about, okay, great. So now what channels am I going to use to reach those audience? Is it like Facebook and Google ads? Is it SEO? Is it like Reddit? Or is it like podcasts, events, conferences? What the channels are you going to use to reach them? And you come up with a channel plan. And then once you have that, then you need to design assets and collateral for each of those marketing channels. You need to work with the marketers to execute the campaign. And then you need to get approvals from your legal, policy, execs, as a whole stakeholder management. Then let everyone in the company know that this is launching and this is the messaging, this is the positioning. So everyone can talk the same language. So that people are not talking different things, because otherwise customers get confused. So all of this is a process, and a lot of the times it's very fragmented in companies. So it's like, you have your go to market plan in a Google Doc, you have your launch checklist in a spreadsheet, you have your assets in a Dropbox, or tasks in Asana, and people don't know where to find. And salespeople are talking about the product in one way, the customer success is explaining it in another way. The PMs are like, what the hell are you doing to my product? I built this feature for a completely different purpose. And the PMMs are like, it's so hard to coordinate all of these stakeholders. So like, it's a huge fragmented process, but with something which touches the entire company. And basically what we're trying to do with Ignition is help you basically automate the whole go to market planning process. So that's just the first part.
Just the
Yeah.
first part, right? Just that little thing there. What's incredible, I mean, we work with a lot of organizations that are either building a product for themselves, and then their buyer, their customer, the user is their employees, right? So that might be a global enterprise that's trying to roll something out to help them run more efficiently, which is almost the exact same kind of market validation, go to market strategy. They call it change management, but a lot of the same things have to happen. How are we rolling this out? What are the channels? And then on the other side of it, when we're helping a company build a SaaS product or a tool that they're going to put out in the marketplace, what you listed there, all of those items, I would say on average, and we're talking global organizations, on average, maybe 10%, 15% of what you said, they even considered. It's not
Yes.
even that they are doing, it's that they didn't even know that they should think about those things. And so what I think when I jumped into your tool, what I was impressed by was that your product is telling a narrative, right? So you're not only helping them to facilitate that narrative, which is this is all that you have to do to be successful in theory, but also I'm going to help you because you may not know this is all that you have to do to be successful. Tell me about like how did you come up with, obviously you saw that yourself in your organizations, but was that intentional to kind of both educate and facilitate at the same time?
You're so spot on. I think there's also a big challenge with our product is like there's a lot of education piece here.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, it's a task management tool, everybody knows how to use a task management, you don't have to teach them. So this is a go to market planning tool. So a lot of the companies don't even know how to go to market planning, or they do it in, each team in the same company does it in their own way. So how do you even standardize it? So different shades of the same problem. So there's a big category creation and a customer education piece involved. But
Yeah.
also that's the beauty of the product, is because we actually handhold you and help you. We have a AI co-pilot in the product, which is going to ask you questions about your product, your budget, and we're going to help you create those narratives. It's not just a doc where you're just working on your own. We're going to handhold you, and we're going to help you generate your messaging, positioning, figure out who track all your competitors. So and we recently now we are building this chat GTM bot, which is which can answer questions. So anybody in the company can ask question about, okay, what's launching, when is it launching, okay, how should I talk about this product to this persona, and the bot will actually tell that person like, okay, this is how you need to message about this product so that it's standardized.
It sounds super similar to, did you see Shopify's rollout of, I don't remember what they're calling it, but similar to that, where
Yeah.
it's like, this gives you the feeling of, this work is hard. It's complicated. It's messy. And so how can you have something that is scoping down to answering a question very easily for you? And I think that's what's really exciting about AI right now. Of course, we're seeing the chat GPTs of the world show us what's possible from a generic standpoint. But when you start scoping that down to, oh, it can answer questions specific to my environment, to my initiative, to my goals, that's when it becomes really, really exciting, because then people can ask it a question about, oh, where are we at in this process? Who do I need to talk about this thing? I'm pumped to see that come out. That's very exciting. And I want to give you some props, because I think you did such a tasteful, there's a lot of companies right now throwing AI at stuff. And I think that you did such a tasteful use of AI where it was appropriate. So the Copilot does a really good job. I remember I was adding one of my competitors for, a hypothetical product, and there's data collection,
Hmm.
and data collection is hard, and so people skip it, and it's because it's a menial task at best, and so you had this AI that would help me fill that out.
Yeah.
But it was scoped to specifically go collect the information as best you can about this competitor. And I thought that was a brilliant use of AI. Not everybody's doing it as nuanced as that. So well done.
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for checking it out. I'm glad.
Okay, so I want to go back in the story a little bit, because now we're getting a sense of what the product does and why it exists. But let's go back a couple years. So you've stepped out to start this startup with your co-founder. Tell me a little bit about that journey of getting this first version built. I mean, because as I jumped into it, this is a fully fledged product now. There's a lot going on here, and you've had a couple years to iterate on it. But what were the early steps like when you were just going to market? What was that like to pull a team together to get that done?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And also, like, just before I answer that question, so on the Ignition, the product side of things, that was the first version of Ignition, but now the product has evolved into more of a larger platform where you can, you do your user research, market research, you build your
Yeah.
product with a roadmap, then you launch your product and measure success. So it's been quite an evolution, the last 2 years, 2+ years to get to the
You've done
product
a
where it
lot
is
in two
today.
years, though. A lot in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, definitely. I spend a lot of engineering resources there. So when we did our own, like thinking about our own go to market, the first persona we started, again, when I talked about my go to market plan, the first thing you do is, who's your persona, like who is your ideal
Yeah.
customer, right? So our own ideal customer was basically a product marketing manager, PMM in a software company, with ideally 50 plus employees, 50 to 100 plus employees, all the way to several hundred to even 1,000 plus employees, and ideally somebody who was looking to establish process in their company, because there's one PMM who's handling multiple product lines, and there's like five PMs, and like maybe like there's 50 engineers, and just one PMM who's trying to basically create a launch process. Or there's a PMM team who has a multiple product line, but still they're very understaffed, and they're looking to set up this process in a large organization. That's who we targeted at the very beginning. And at the very beginning, it was much easier because, like, my co-founder has been a product marketer for almost 20 years. So there's a lot of it. When we started the company, it was basically we heavily leaned on our own network
Right.
to email, I mean, source, and also early investors were very helpful in getting us into the companies, opening doors. So our early investors and our network, that was literally how we did it, how we targeted PMMs. And obviously the messaging was all about, like, standardize your go-to-market process, so we are automate your go-to-market process. And then our positioning was all around, because we are the first to do something like this in this space.
Yeah. I hadn't seen a product like, not exactly like this before.
Yeah, so it was pretty straightforward there. So now there's the competition is basically a fragmented set of tools, like kind of hooked together to make this happen,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
But then as we grew, the first thing we did is, we implemented email automation, so outbound email. So we use a tool called Ample Market, similar to Apollo, where we can say, hey, it's a
Mhm.
PMM, and then go find these people, and then every day send like 25. Initially start with 10 emails a day, and then you ramp up at 25, 50, 100 emails a day. And that's kind of your own automated SDR trying to generate leads for you. So we set that up as a first step of scaling. And then we started this usual the Google search ads, and then sponsoring, becoming speakers in conferences, publishing a lot of thought leadership content. So our blog has a lot of content about what a good go-to-market strategy is. So
Yeah.
publishing those guides, and then so building the SEO engine for the longer term. So the usual stuff. So that's kind of how we have invested in our own go-to-market.
So that's interesting. So what I love is that you're using your own methodology, your own kind of approach that the tool facilitates to do that for yourself. And I love that you're co-founder, and of course yourself. You've had experience being a part of product teams and products that have gone to market or features that have released.
Yeah,
But having your co-founder as well be that subject matter expert, that's a gift, right? Because
yeah,
that allows you to make decisions faster because you've got someone who has been there, done that.
yeah.
Um, Now let's go back to the engineering side. So there's one thing to say: we know how to get this product out to the market. We've identified who we're going after. We've got their interest. Maybe I don't know if you did kind of a pre-list or kind of built up a list of folks that be your early adopters, but then talk about the engineering side. What did it look like to pull together teams? So, did you already have teams that you were working with? Did you write the code? Like, what did that look like to actually get this product built?
Yeah, the excuse me, the engineering teams, yeah, it has evolved quite a bit in the last 10 years, especially since COVID, because everyone's remote now.
Right.
So when we hired engineers in my previous startup, or the very first startup, it was all about like being co-located in the same city. So if I'm in the Bay Area, I would hire everyone in the Bay Area. And because I want to
Right.
be, this traditional dream startup is like, you go to a garage, you hire a garage, and you have four people, you hack together, right? That's your like that's how you imagine a Silicon Valley
Yeah,
startup to
that's
be.
right. That's right.
But that's 10 years ago. Now it's
Yeah.
changed. It's all remote. You can hire people, or you can work with people anywhere in the world. So why won't so that was our goal. Our goal when we started Ignition, this was like a COVID company. We started during COVID. So it was like, it's not about location. We just find the best people wherever they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So we have people in like 6 countries. We have people in 6 countries. I mean, we are still
Wow.
early stage, as you can imagine, and everywhere. And obviously, we have 4 people in the U.S. We have people in Eastern Europe, people in India, people in South America. So it's like fully
Yep.
distributed, remote. And the way we sourced is like basically through AngelList,
Hmm.
through dev shops and agencies. We hired them, and whoever is the best, we would basically like get them onto our team.
Yep.
So yeah, several different channels, but it's basically wherever they are, just find the best in what they do.
Well, and I'd be remiss to not ask if product. How does product management? Because we have a lot of folks a lot of our listeners are either a in that chief product officer kind of role or senior product manager kind of role. Is that something we're hearing? There's a shift in the market right now, right? Airbnb came out, was like, we don't have any product managers. It's all designers working with engineers, or it's very engineering heavy. What does the makeup of your team look like? So obviously you were able to find engineers to execute on, writing the technical features. What about design? What about product management? What about the other members of the team to come together and
Yeah,
get this built?
yeah. You asked a great question. I want to answer that first before I take this, because I think that's very exciting, because that's exactly why we're building Ignition. And also, like, I think what Brian Chesky from Airbnb said is like, they are getting rid of the function and are changing the
Yes.
function, but PMs are still very critical. I think what he's saying is like, it's not just about working with engineers and coming up with a roadmap and a vision. PM should also know how to talk about the product.
That's
It's
right.
like, if you cannot talk about your product, how are you going to build a better product? So that should also be a core skill set for PMs. And Ignition fits right in, because a lot of the existing tools for PMs are very specifically built towards working with engineering teams. Like,
Yes.
how do you
Yes.
push stuff to Jira, and how do you maybe now they are obviously about a collection of insights, which is important too. but it's not it about how do you message this to the users, how do you position
Right.
it, like. So that's where I think where Ignition is going is now we're targeting more and more PMs, and we have some exciting launch coming next month specifically to target product managers. But now, coming back, I mean, I hope that also answers the question where we strongly feel PMs are very critical. I mean, I've been a career PM. I've been a PM all my
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
and PMs are I think like the one of the central main one of the main people who hold like who basically run the cockpit. They're in the mission control. They're in the driver's seat
Yeah.
driving this
Yeah.
product, and it's just the skill set is changing. So if you look at the evolution of PMs, 10, 15 years ago there were no PMs. It was engineering managers who were basically planning the roadmap. And
Right.
then there's Jira and all the task management tools, all the ones those are the ones which existed then. And then PMs evolved from engineering managers because we needed a higher level strategy. We need somebody to talk about the user stories, talk to the users, and then abstract the high level roadmap from the tactical engineering tasks. And also tools like product board and product pad and
Hmm. Hmm.
product plan, a bunch of other tools evolved. And then now what you see is happening is like it's not just enough if you really work very well with the engineers. You also need to work well with your sales and marketing teams. We're also seeing that product teams should also own revenue KPIs, for example. Like product managers never cared about revenue KPIs. Like, hey, maybe I move my retention a bit, or maybe reduce my bug count, whatever it is your KPIs are. But now as product teams are being asked to take on revenue KPIs or shared KPIs with the sales teams or with the marketing teams, make sure work on the marketing campaigns, make sure we are messaging the product right. So I feel like that PM role is evolving from very very engineering focused, engineering design and user research focused, to also work closely with marketing and sales and also take on shared KPIs. And that's the change we see coming.
150% yes. I think that you articulated it so well because we've seen that same progression even over the existence of our company. So Crim is about 15 years old. Early days it was very engineering focused. How do we just make sure the tasks that we're getting done are getting done and launching on time and on budget? And then it progressed to, okay, now we need to pull insights into that. We need to be closer to the business stakeholder, closer to the user, actually connecting these dots, kind of building these constellations from all these data points. Now, I think you're seeing, I'm careful not to use this term because I think it actually maybe sends mixed signals, but we've heard this idea of like the product manager is like the mini CEO, which is to say, like, what's happening across all the pieces. You maybe aren't doing everything, but the end goal for your organization is either to increase revenue, decrease cost, or get your customer, your user to buy more or share it out, right? Increase that net promoter score. So there's these basic metrics that at least at a base, you need these product managers to be aware. This is what you're affecting. I know it makes you feel good to see a new feature come out. I know it makes you feel good to see retention go up a little bit, but the end goal of that is net growth, right? And
Yeah.
so that's I think you nailed it. We're seeing that same thing, even to the point where we've started just making it a common practice with our clients, and it really wasn't a part of our proposal. It's not a part of our engagements, but we try to say at the end of every release, if there's a big release milestone, especially for a first launch, we immediately try to create some type of asset. Usually it's a video where it's like, okay, can we tell the story of why the product exists, who it's for, why it exists, why it should matter to the end user. They might use it, they might not use it, but we produce this video asset. We then give it back to them and say,
Hmm.
hey, use this if you want. Got a voiceover actor, we're showing off the product, etc. But the reality is, what we want you to know that we understand why this exists. And that's such
That's,
a it goes so far to say, okay, now let's keep going, right?
yeah, that's
So I
great.
love that. I love that. So okay, wow. So we've covered a lot of ground here. So not only were you able to kind of spend the last 2 years iterating on your product, building up a workflow that both educates a user but also facilitates the customer. Um, we're starting to implement AI. You're starting to talk to product managers rolling out this feature. But it sounds like a perfect dream story of this going without flaw or without mistake. What in this journey over the last 2 years, what's one spot where you went, that was an unknown? We tripped, we failed. Where's the
Yeah.
challenges you had to overcome?
Oh yeah, so I mean, there's so many of that. Actually, that's probably
Right.
more than the success stories. It's probably
Yeah,
like for every
sure,
10
sure.
failures, there's one success,
Yep,
one
yep.
big. So, I mean, just to even step back, even beyond 2 years. I mean, my very first startup, right? So when I
Yeah.
started my very first company, so it was called, so it was basically we're trying to build like an aggregator, like a kayak.com for loans. Those are the days where all these like lending club and prosper were really taking off, and we were trying to aggregate all the loans for investors so you can go invest in those loans and get a higher yield.
Yep.
And we started to build a product there, and that failed miserably because we realized the market was not big, and also I had disagreements with my co-founder on the vision,
Mm,
and then whatnot. So that was my very first story, and I had to exit the startup and then think about, okay, what am I going to do, and took a few months break and joined Craft. um, so and right from there, and when I went to Craft, even so at Craft, we had to go through pivots in terms of our target audience. So Craft
mm,
is basically a data intelligence company, and we first started selling to hedge funds,
yeah.
and we realized hedge funds is a great market, but they churn quickly, they are very demanding, and they're not very nice to work with. So we like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what, we're not going to work with them. Then we started working with salespeople, I think, and then sales was like, okay, the contract size are very small.
Sure.
So we found our
It's a
product market
volume
fit in,
play at that point. Yeah.
yeah, and we need bigger volumes to make it work. So and we didn't know if we had that. So we found a product market fit in supply chain intelligence. Who would have thought? Like none of
Oh,
us were
yeah.
supply chain experts,
Yeah.
and that's because they needed a tool to, because think about some big manufacturing company. They have thousands of suppliers. They need an automated tool to like go through, verify that their companies who they are. They have their offices and factories and the locations they claim they have. They have just so
Hmm.
many employees. Do a whole check, and that's how we got started, and we found a product market fit, and then now it's a series B company, as I said. So you just have to go through so many of these early stage, I wouldn't call it necessarily failures, because there's no failures, it's all learning
Sure.
lessons.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Like, and then but it's all about how you react to it and how do you respond to it. Because if you're very adamant and stubborn, saying like, I know better than the market, and you just keep hammering it away, and then you're just going to give up at some point. A market is always right. So you need to take the lesson and respond appropriately, and then success will find you.
I used the analogy a couple years ago. I got into cycling. I'm
Hmm.
not a cyclist. I want that to be clear. Like there are cyclists. I just enjoy cycling. But what I realized was with cycling, it was one of those things where you can push yourself to a certain limit, right? And then at a certain point, you go, "Oh, I can't go any further. I can't, I can't go any faster," and it's disappointing. And you feel like I'm just not good enough. But then what you realize is as you practice, as you do it more and more over and over again, your recovery times get faster. And so I think your point of it's not about failing. It's like, well, yeah, of course I didn't know that right out of the gate, but your time to recovery starts shortening as you get more experience. And I hope you were able to apply those things to your startup, this, with Ignition, to say, oh, we can take those. We'll still make mistakes. We'll still have to iterate. We'll still have to learn,
Yeah.
but we can reduce the recovery
When
time that it takes to get over that.
Exactly, 100%. And that's why, we were able to build such a complex product in 2 years, is because of all the failures in the past, not failure, learnings in the past, which we
Yep.
could take and apply to Ignition. So, yeah, it's been one hell of a ride.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I want to kind of pivot towards a little bit of like looking into the future. Obviously, it's, when we're recording this, it's the middle of 2023. Okay. So
Hmm.
if somebody's listening to this in the future, you're looking back middle of 2023. What was the theme of 2023? It's AI.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing looking forward that you're excited about? Is it AI? Is it something else? Obviously, you already have AI in your platform, but what if you can look maybe 12 months, 18 months ahead, which seems like a lifetime in our world, but if you could look that far ahead, what do you see coming that you're excited about?
Yeah, just on AI itself, we have gone through a lot of cycles. Like, this Web3 was really hot, and I saw a lot of
Yeah.
VCs change their title from Web3 VC to AI VC now.
That's so true. That's so
So
true.
that's happening, but I think AI is real. Like, I
Yeah.
have been fascinated. I mean, I'm sure there's hundreds of people are talking about it, but I just want to add to that. It's like what I thought will be there 5, 10 years from now. I see it today. Like
Yeah.
some of the results we are seeing in experiments with whether it's the OpenAI or Google or any other LLMs, it's just been fascinating. The level of quality,
Yes.
even compared to a human. So, I think this is definitely, if you look back 5 years from now, this is definitely a very pivotal moment in 2023. This is going to change the way pretty much everything works, and specifically in business software, the very traditional workflow. Like, if you look at whether it's like Salesforce app, HubSpot, product board, whatever, Jira, everything is like workflow oriented. Like, you go
Yes.
create a task, you go update it. All of that will be rebuilt with from an AI native perspective,
Hmm.
reimagined from an AI native perspective, where the tool is also not just a workflow tool, it's actually automation. It's actually automating a significant portion of your job. So, for example, if you're a PM, you can just focus on the strategy and the vision, not worrying about keeping the roadmap in the order, messaging stakeholders, or trying to or summarizing insights. All of that is going to be taken care of by the AI. So you can
Yep.
actually do the creative work which humans are really meant for. So I feel like there's a huge automation revolution coming right now from AI, and then something's going to be good, something's going to be bad. It's like
That's
it's
within
always double-edged
any
sword
innovation, right?
in
Yeah.
any new technology, right? So you just got to watch out. But yeah, that's something I'm like super excited about, and yeah.
I'm very curious. I'm curious to see what you think. One of the things I've been thinking about is as we see this progression of automation, as we see not only that we can get faster and more efficient than things, we'll have to be creative. And I want it to be clear. I actually think there'll be a relatively long transitional period of folks that know how to utilize the tool of AI, right? We're taking advantage of the fact that we're in this industry where everyone's using it and everyone's talking about it. But then I go and talk to my mom or my wife, who's are in just totally different worlds. And while they get it, their daily activity hasn't quite changed from it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and even as I described to them, me jumping back in and learning to code again. So I hadn't coded in years because I mostly handed that off to engineers and we built teams around that. And I was like, I'm just curious. And so I jumped in and I used the early versions of Chat GPT 4 and I said, hey, I just want to be able to CRM. The data model is fairly simple, but I knew what prompt to give it. Right.
Hmm.
I knew how to tell it what data I wanted, that I wanted it to be a relational database, that I wanted to have a, smart search. I'd like to have AI on top of this, so, et cetera. But I knew how to craft that prompt because I knew a bit about the space.
Yeah.
So by the end of the day, so I took a Saturday and I basically told my family, I was like, hey, are you cool with me going and looking at the computer for the next 6 hours? And they said yes. I sat down. By the end of it, I had basically learned the basics of Python. I'd never, back in the
Hmm.
day, I never did Python. Python wasn't my language, but learned the basics of Python and had a functioning app, not deployed, but at least running locally. And I understood the models and the file structure. But as I was communicating it, I thought to myself, not everybody could do this.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
know how to prompt it. I know what I'm looking for because I at least have a little bit more context as to how to get there or how to communicate with it. And I think we're going to see that transitionary period.
Yeah.
But then you take two steps forward and you look at things being fully automated. So
Hmm.
take marketing, for example. That's
Hmm.
obviously an industry that's
Yeah.
being disrupted really fast because everybody's going to automate everything. My curiosity will be, well, how will it change behavior of the end user that is receiving the AI marketed content?
Hmm.
So do we start to, we all ignore emails already. We all
Yeah.
ignore LinkedIn messages already. We don't answer our phones anymore. Will we just stop paying attention to all of it and
Yeah.
go someplace else because the AI is no longer, we know it's AI? I'm very curious about the human reaction to that
Yeah.
experience.
No, that's definitely a great question. I've definitely wondered a lot on that. I mean, for the first half of what you said, I think that's where for most of the people the AI will be abstracted out. So you won't even know that the AI
Yes.
is a part of it. So that's the like there should be no part. It's like basically doing your work for you, but it's powered by AI, but you don't see that. Like
Right. At
that's
that
why
point, it's just computing in the background. Right. Yeah.
it's just computing in the background and all. In fact, a lot of the engineering work is going to shift from just writing code to writing prompts.
Right.
And then,
Right.
the end user is not even exposed to the prompts. That's a fascinating, it's already happening. It's
Yep.
just crazy how many AI hackathons are happening right now as we
It's so
speak in
fast. I
America.
know. It's wild. It's hard to keep up with it all, but it's exciting.
But then, yeah, there's a real risk that, like, even for us, like, we were like, oh, we need to think about writing blogs and, doing content marketing. And then we found a couple of tools where it just
Hmm.
auto generated blogs for us, and we were able to generate like 1,000 blogs in a week, which would have taken us like a couple of years. And
Yeah.
we did it in a week and we published it. But then we were like, hey, but if everyone keeps generating thousands and thousands of blogs, then who's going to read them all, and is it even valuable? And, like, obviously we're doing it for SEO purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
and also we have two different sections. There's a section where the blog is like us writing, and there's a AI generated blog. So we also want
Yeah.
to keep track, like, how Google, like, if Google realizes this AI and then dings it, and then this is
Yeah.
like human written, and maybe it has like a higher score or something.
Uh-huh.
I think algorithms will probably evolve to kind of differentiate, the wheat from the chaff. It's always been an issue for content, and the problem is only be like not even 10x. It's probably a 100x problem,
Yeah.
where
You're
for
right.
all the search engines, and like, how do you surface the most high quality content? So just have to do a lot of work in figuring out, like, I mean, AI content doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like, how do you, like, separate out this? Because if you don't do that, then, yeah, people are just going to stop reading it, because people are going to
That's
stop
right.
googling it, because, like, it's just a big mess out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in that space between the already not yet. It's
Yeah.
like we're there, but we're not at the pinnacle of what it could be. And also we're in the hype curve, right? So like it's definitely novel right now. So we're all testing the novelty of what could be. And in reality, that will settle into what is, right?
Yeah.
Where does it become a practical part of our everyday lives of the same way we treat Zoom now, or the same way we treat the internet now, or cloud computing now. These were all mind-blowing ideas when they came out. How could I not have an on-prem server, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, now everything's scalable in the cloud. I'm curious about, like, will we all say that about quantum computing at some point, where we just say,
Yeah.
like, yeah, we all have a quantum computer sitting around someplace. I don't know, but I'm very much here for it. So well, first off, Karthik, I want to say thank you, because your tool, your product, the way that you're approaching this, I think that it's one thing to build a product to say, yes, we have a business that can hopefully make some money. There's a second thing to say, we want to help people be better at what they do every day, and that is launch products and take them to market. And your tool is very clearly aiming to help people, not only from a facilitation standpoint, but from an education standpoint, and ultimately make it so that they can do their jobs better,
Yeah.
release better products, go to market with things that are going to help the world be a better place. So thank you, because that's hard work. That is very, very difficult work to do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for exploring the tool, and thanks for, having me on the show. Yeah, it was great. I just wanted to add one thing, that, we will be launching, product roadmap.ai in August. And that's going to be super exciting. So keep an eye out for the launch.
You heard it here. All right, cool, cool, cool. Well, again, thank you for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you, your company, your information? Where can they check you out?
Yeah. So our website is haveignition.com. It's HAVEIGNITION.com. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. My LinkedIn handle is Karthik Suresh LBS, and my Twitter handle is just my first name, last name is Karthik Suresh. Yeah, thank you so much.
People of Product is brought to you by Crema, a design consultancy that helps forward-thinking leaders discover, understand, and execute on their greatest opportunities. Learn more at crema.us.